Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I'm Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Hello.
I felt like I put a nice bit of gravitas into that. I gave you a nice little pause, and I really emphasised the special attraction that you are.
I just assumed that you forgot my name.
No.
Connor, Matt, no.
Oh no, I say your name in front of the mirror 5 times every day just to make sure I don't forget it.
Ooh.
And unfortunately,
I'd be too lazy to be summoned to kill anyone.
I see like a flicker of a reflection of Tim just sitting with like his belly out on like a chair. Yeah. He's eating some snacks.
Yeah. I just throw a knife towards you and say, you do it.
We are a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films, obviously, and we've watched the movie, we talk about it. It's that simple. And we have a big new release from this year that we are finally getting to, and that is Candyman, the new 2021. It was maybe 2020, of course, and got delayed due to the pandemic, as did a lot of things. But we reviewed the first film, I think, late last year. We did the sequels. Well, we did the first sequel last year, and then we did the third one
very recently.
That was during October. So we wanted to like have it up to date, make sure we've seen the original trilogy, even though it's really just a movie and 2 tacked on sequels, and be prepared for this. And this is very much the Halloween 2018 style. And I'm not talking about quality yet. We'll talk about how we feel about it in a minute. I just mean in the sense that we're just calling it Candyman. It's not Candyman Returns, Candyman Resurrection, Candyman, Strikes Back, whatever.
Yeah. It's usually either like Origins, Resurrection, or like Returns.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Or probably the most obvious thing they could have called this would be Candyman Say My Name.
Yeah. That
would be the obvious subtitle they'd give it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a fresh like jumping on point with a new set of characters, but it does still exist in the same world as the original film, which does get referenced. So it's just that kind of passing of the torch nostalgia reboot, for lack of a better term. Directed by Nia DaCosta. Jordan Peele was one of the writers, along with Wynn Rosenfield and Nia DaCosta, and produced. And there was a lot of buzz getting into this. The trailers were fairly promising.
Literally, because they had a lot of bees.
I didn't even mean that, but I'm happy I said it. I regret nothing. So we will start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers, and I will start with the simple question. I won't give you a plot synopsis. The Candyman things happen. I just want to ask Tim. I feel like the plot in this is mostly spoilery, to be honest.
Very true. Yeah.
So I'll just ask the question straight up and see how we feel about it. Timmy, how did you feel about the brand new Candyman?
Wow. Wasn't expecting that.
I asked that question every single episode, Tim. I don't know why it was so shocking this time.
No, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm still kind of like mulling it over, because I'm not actually like I watched this last night, last night. But I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it yet. Maybe we can kind of get somewhere while we're talking, because I definitely don't hate it. Going in, I was really excited. I thought the trailer looked great. I don't really know much about Nia DaCosta, but just kind of from like seeing the trailer and I'm hearing some stuff about it. It seemed really cool. And then I'd heard some mixed reactions. I think people were mostly positive, but I did see like a few people that like really didn't like it, including one of my friends who we usually share a lot of similar opinions on. He really like hated it. So yeah, I wasn't really sure what to think going in, and then after watching it, I definitely don't hate it. I am positive on it. I'm just kind of trying to decide if like I kind of just like it or if I'm like really into it. So maybe we'll kind of talk it through and kind of figure out. But I think so some of the things that I like is I think it looks really good. I like a lot of the like flair and cinematography. Like there's some cool stuff they do. Like there's like a lot of I would think like tricks and stuff that they do with mirrors that I think is pretty cool. I think there's like a lot of good kills. I mostly like the characters and stuff. I think where maybe I get a little hesitant is I'm not sure exactly how I feel about the story. like you said, it's kind of hard to talk about because there's like, I don't want to say it's like twisty and turny, but there's like a lot of maybe like surprises and stuff in it. And I feel like there's a lot of different ideas in it, which I think are all like really cool and interesting, but I'm not sure if they mesh together the best. So that's why I'm kind of like, don't really have like a very hard stance of like, oh yeah, I love it, or oh, I hate it. So yeah, I'm still kind of thinking it over, but I will say I am more on the positive side of it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you really wanted to get across that there's the positive side and the elements that you were mentioning, it's not necessarily the result you want from a movie where you come into it going, oh, I'm still thinking about if I liked it or not. Like I'm still having to figure it out. It should be a little easier than that usually. I'm kind of mixed on it. Overall, like it's just easily better than the sequels. The 2 and 3.
Without a doubt.
Like, but the bar's not exactly that high there. I think I agree. It looks good. There's some nice visual kills. At least 2 in particular, I think are quite good. And the themes that it's playing with, I thought it was doing a really good job with up until a point. Like there's a lot of good little things that I want to mention, and the characters and the storytelling, and the characters at least start off pretty solid. I think it does fumble with a couple of them as it goes on. And the acting, I think the 2 leads are very good. Yeah. Really enjoyed their performances. The actor whose name I cannot remember at all, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He was in Watchmen, and I think I saw him in something else as well, but he was good in that too. And I think the performances are good. For me, I kind of agree with what you were saying, but I'll get a little more specific with it. Is that
please?
The third act kind of sucks. Like I mean, to sort of be more blunt about it. It feels like there's an entire 20 to 30 minute section that was cut out before the final 20 minutes. And
this is kind of a short movie.
Yeah, it's like 90 minutes, and it has a very long like opening title sequence as well, so it's not like it's like making complete use of its time either. And I felt like there was just like I wasn't necessarily in love where it started to go around the middle of the movie. Like I'm starting to feel like I don't know if I really like where this is heading now, but I was open to whatever it was going to try and do. But there's some sharp turns in the last 20 minutes that just kind of felt unfulfilling to me, and it felt like, what is this? And then it kind of, not only did it take some sharp turns story-wise, it felt like it got really muddy with what the actual rules with Candyman were and what Candyman is. Yeah. In a way that felt like, I don't want to say it betrays what Candyman is, but all of a sudden it felt like it wasn't the same thing. I'm not even talking about the original movie here. I'm saying it didn't feel like the same thing that the movie started with, with Candyman. So...
do you think that this might have been better served if they just kind of did like a complete reboot instead of trying to, do this kind of like reboot sequel kind of thing? Like, like, do you think some of the problems were coming with it, like trying too hard to tie into the first movie?
I actually don't. No. I think the way the original stuff ties into it, and the idea that there's like, so Candyman was always about this like harsh reminder of like this awful history and what the black population has went through, and it's this really stark, horrible reminder. And Candyman is this myth that grows out of that horror. In the same way that other movies will say, The Grudge, something terrible happened here, so a curse is born. Candyman is kind of that in a very specific lens, and I think the way it tackles it in this, where the Candyman from the original movie is kind of the original, but ultimately other tragedies have kind of added to Candyman's mythos over time. I thought that was a neat touch. I'm don't want to get too spoilery here. I'm just like I think that actually worked quite well, especially since one of the themes of the movie, I think, is that our main character is an artist who does paintings that are kind of about other black people, about things he feels, that subjects he wants to tackle. Gentrification is obviously a big one from the original film that is then brought up again in this one. And he is told by multiple characters that, maybe this is played out, tackling this subject. And the kind of part of the point of the movie is that, but we've not solved it yet. There's still a problem. Yeah. So you don't just get to decide. And it's mostly white characters who are saying to him, haven't we done this already? Aren't we past this phase?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not really a phase. Like, so I kind of dug. So I think tying the original film into the history and saying that it keeps, like, bad things keep happening, so the myth keeps growing and evolving, I actually think works. I think that part of it's not one of the problems of the movie.
Yeah, I think there was an interesting, I forget what they said, but it was something about talking about how like things happen in cycles, or there's like a, kind of like the
40 years ago. 40 years ago. Haddonfield was shaken to its core 40 years ago.
Oh man, yeah, but I thought that there was kind of a like a little bit of a almost seemed like kind of a meta comment on it too, when they were talking about like how these things kind of happen in waves or cycles, and it kind of like just made me feel like, oh, like kind of like, like the movie itself, like these franchises or these reboots that kind of have their place in time for a bit and then go away for a while, and then someone brings them back. But I mean, I don't think like that was like a big part of the movie, but it's just something I kind of picked up on. I was like, I think that's kind of cool.
I think it's a little there, and I think the fact that we have, like the artist, the main character's an artist, a painter, and we see we see people at art shows critiquing the work, and like you could, I mean, I wasn't really thinking about it in that context, but you probably could listen to some of that and see, oh, does this kind of tie into like movie critiques and things? Can you like extrapolate some meta commentary from that? And you probably can. It feels like it's a potent environment to do such a comparison. It's really frustrating. It's one of these things where it feels like it just kind of like becomes a bit of a mess in the last 20 minutes, and I think, and I don't know if they did cut like a bunch of stuff, but it does feel like, I think especially the main character, if I remember correct, was Anthony, was his name?
Sounds right.
Yeah. I felt like he, at a certain point, stopped being a character and just started being like, it was almost like the movie was trying to shift to his girlfriend as the main character, which is fine, and I actually think it kind of makes sense in the context of the story, but it kind of felt like it happened so sudden where I'm like, because I started off the movie like really liking that character, and I felt like it did a really good job at the start, making them feel like a real pair of people, and they had chemistry. There was a little moment at the start of the movie where she's gone off to work, and obviously he stays at home and paints. And there's a moment where she just sort of kisses him goodbye, and instead of like kissing her bye back, he kind of sticks out his leg and sort of like pretends to fire it like a gun. And I thought that was like a really cute little moment. It was like, oh, okay, so there's little nice little textual things to like make these characters feel real and have personality and all that. But then like once he starts becoming obsessed with the myth of Candyman and he's starting to investigate and things, it kind of feels like it goes into almost autopilot of like characters obsessed, and and if anything, like one of the things that maybe could have been explored more, and I think I don't know, I think I might have saw something that implied there was more of this that maybe was cut or something, but so Helen, if that was her name in the original movie, I think it was.
It was.
The idea that she kind of like got up to stuff after the original movie, and like because she was then attached to Candyman, to the mythos, that she was kind of driving things for a while after that movie, and that maybe there was more history to kind of unpack there. It's because we have a scene where he gets like the notes, the recordings, and I believe Virginia Madsen did record new dialogue for these recordings, so
good for her.
Yes, good for her. And I was like, oh, there's some interesting stuff. And admittedly, if you go into that more, you're tying it even more to the original film, and maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to just keep the history of it for the sake of like, this is all of this is relevant. All of this is relevant to the history of how people are treated. But that is one potential avenue to go down. But it kind of felt like at a certain point he was just constantly in a, like a character once they're so far into dreamland that they don't resemble a real person anymore, but they're just kind of like in a trance, so they're kind of like being there to witness things and feel things, but there's no character anymore.
It's a little frustrating because you kind of want to like reach into the screen and just yell at them, like, like, oh, like, stop doing this. Or I know, like, for me, I was getting really, really angry that he was not going to the hospital to have his hand looked at. Like...
Yeah, I know, I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing. It does kind of feel like he stops having enough agency to actually kind of care about the decisions he's making. It feels like very quickly he's just kind of on a track.
Yeah.
And there's nothing he can do about it. And I think that's maybe a little frustrating, which is why I guess it makes sense that it kind of shifts to the girlfriend a little bit, Brianna. But I think Brianna, it feels like it takes too long to shift to her, if that's like the point, because she is like this girlfriend character who's very loving with him, but then he starts acting weird, so she kind of grows separate from him a little bit. It feels like we spend too long before it jumps to her. And so she becomes the protagonist, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I feel like I don't say this often, but this is a movie I feel like definitely could have been longer. Like, I mean, maybe if not longer, they could have just shortened stuff out. But like, it's not like when I got to the end, it's not like I felt like, it was dragging or anything. Like, I feel like, you could have, had a little more room to breathe, and then maybe wouldn't have felt like so jarring when you kind of get to that last section, and like you're saying, like they switch character, they kind of, you start missing the characters and everything. But it's I don't know, it's interesting.
Because there's definitely a couple of scenes at the end that I just thought were straight up bad, and I don't know, like, would I still think they were bad if they had time to set this up properly? I don't know. But there's a reveal with one thing in particular that I'm like, I kind of hate this. Like, why are you doing this? So yes, anywho, I guess we'll give the warning for spoilers so we can talk about it, more in depth, talk about the plot points, all the rest of it. So full spoilers for this point on for Candyman 2021. So, I mean, the movie starts with a flashback to the 60s or 70s, give or take, to a young character. It's in the same neighborhood as the buildings in the original film. They point that out a bunch of times.
Yeah, Cabrini Green.
That's the one. And, this kid, he's like, I don't know, 14, 13, something like that. And he's sent to go do laundry. And the laundry in this neighborhood, like, he has to walk down the street and go into, like, a basement. And it's, like, one little machine that a lot of people are sharing. And I think what hurts about the back chunk of the movie being such a mess is that the movie does such a good job of introducing all of its elements. Like, when he walks past the cop car and it's the two white cops sitting in it, and they kind of like try and, like, one just sort of like, it's not even like, he doesn't even say anything, he just kind of whistles at him or something like that to get him to look at like a wanted poster, like, have you seen this man? And the kid just kind of shrugs or indicates that he doesn't. But there's like a tension there. There's a tension because they feel that they're threatening to him, and
of course, like, the cops are like super white.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we get this fairly creepy sequence where he goes down into the basement, and a new Candyman, not Tony Todd, but a Candyman comes out of this hole in the wall, and actually throws out a piece of a candy, a sweet, to use the UK way of saying it, a sweet. But and he comes out the wall, and it kind of does a cliffhanger thing where you hear the kids scream, but it just kind of cuts away, and we get our opening title sequence. But it kind of establishes, okay, so we have a different Candyman here, what's going on? And the part of the movie is that we kind of learn about this guy first before we eventually get to, oh no, Tony Todd's Candyman did exist. He was the first, in fact. He was the first Candyman. But these other, like, I think the character exposition man who explains all this, he explains, he lists off like 4 or 5 names, like, he became a Candyman, he became a Candyman. There's been all these Candymans over the years. They become part of the myth.
Yeah, like, I don't know if I want to say this is a problem, but this was something that was kind of bugging me at the start of the movie, because I kept saying, like, okay, so I guess this is kind of a reboot then, because it'd be weird that, like, this guy's Candyman and we're not even mentioning the Tony Todd character at all. But then once they start talking about Helen from the first movie, then I'm like, okay, wait a minute, so it does exist? And like, but I don't know, but then I got confused, and then they explain it by the end. But I mean I think it's like a good explanation, but I don't know, it does feel like a little muddy to me, and I do kind of wonder, but if I go back and watch it now, like, if it won't like bother me that much, kind of knowing the direction it's going in. But it was something that was bugging me at first while watching it.
I think what's weird about, because later on we get the rest of this scene, right? We get the rest of the story, because the guy that works at the laundry or the laundrette, he turns out to be the grown-up version of this kid, and he explains.
Sorry, no, and I could be wrong, but I think he was the kid from the first movie. I don't know if you remember in the first movie. I think it ends with like Helen like kidnaps a kid or something like that.
Well, the baby. No, the main character's the baby.
Oh, the main character. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the guy, the laundrette guy. He's the kid in
laundromat guy. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
And then in the opening, yeah. So he tells the rest of the story, and it turns out that he got a fright, but this guy was actually harmless. He just wanted to hand, he just like giving out kids candy, which, yeah, admittedly, in a modern day setting sounds a bit creepy because,
we did
strangers.
When I was. Yeah, when I was growing up, our elementary school was like right across from this old folks home, and there was this old guy named Remy who would come around, and he was like, I don't know what happened to him, but he was like missing part of his tongue, so like he couldn't talk. Like he can just kind of mumble, like he would come in and be like, rah, 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 rah. But he would. That
felt like an insensitive impression to me.
No, like, I mean, that's. I'm not saying like. I was just saying like he just kind of like could kind of just move his gums. He just like couldn't like form words. Like I'm sorry, but that's like what it sounded like. I'm not trying to be insensitive. But he would basically just come and he would just kind of like go to the like fence like when we were at recess, and he would just kind of like give like gum to kids. And we loved it as kids. We're like, oh hell yeah, thanks Remy. But like, I mean, now it's like oh yeah, you'd be like so creeped out if that was happening today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly innocent thing, and it should be an innocent thing. But obviously, there's enough weirdos in the world that everyone has to be, scary and cautious and all the rest of it. But we hear that there was someone put a razor blade in an apple that hurt a little girl, and that's why they're looking for him. And because he's the guy who gives out candy, he's the one that the police are looking for. But it turns out that no, he was just trying to offer him candy. He's been hiding because the police are after him, but he's actually innocent. My problem with this though is that I don't think the movie ever quite like gives me a reason why he's dressed as Candyman though, because he has a hook for a hand and he has the coat and all the like, and obviously it's there for us because we recognize that as that's what Candyman looks like, but that's a bit weird in hindsight. But it's this traumatic thing where the cops come in and kill him, and then there's another razor blade thing a couple of weeks later. So he was innocent, he was gunned down for no reason, and it's this traumatic thing that he went through as a kid, this laundromat guy. That's kind of like part of the backstory. That's kind of his like I guess, I mean, we could tackle this rather than order, just go by like characters and like stuff, because if we're staying on this guy is one of the biggest problems of the whole movie when we get to the end, I think.
This guy, what his name was, Sherman, I think.
Oh, was it? I don't remember his name. That sounds vaguely no, says William Burke was his name.
I thought that was a grocery guy, or the laundromat guy.
That is the laundromat guy. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Candyman guy.
No. I'm talking about.
Oh, sorry.
No, laundromat guy, Burke, William Burke.
Okay.
Right, we're still on him.
Yeah, Captain Burke.
Right. I think by the end of the movie, I think he's one of the most problematic characters for me. His turn towards the end of the film made no sense to me, and I didn't get anything out of it.
Yeah, it felt very. Crap. What do you call it when like, what is it? Deus ex machina. Like
Deus ex machina. Yes.
Deus douche.
Not that.
But no, like, yeah, it just kind of like came out of nowhere, and he was like, all right, I'm gonna like explain like the story and what's going on now. And yeah, it felt very strange for a character that was like, he had like a couple of good scenes, like, I thought like earlier on in the movie, but it's like, oh, he's just like a main character now. Like, this is kind of weird. He's
a little bit exposition-y. He's the exposition character, but at least, when he's giving these creepy speeches and he is explaining the backstory of what the Candyman legend is, they are well done scenes, and it kind of intercuts with the paintings that Anthony's done of all the Candymen. Like, you see in his studio, he's already painted all these faces, so he's already got them in his head, and somehow, It's Candyman stuff, and okay, and that's all fine, but do you know what? Like, I hate to compare it to Halloween 2018 because it is a bit of an unfair thing to jump to, but this guy turns out to be a psychopath who actually wants to recreate a new Candyman, and it's very much like the twist in Halloween 2018 with a doctor.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but I could see that.
It's very unsatisfying. He just turns out to be the psychopath, like, immediately. And I thought maybe he's going to say something, and like, see if the movie went down a path where it was going to turn out that there was no actual, like, supernatural shit going on, and it was just him killing people, and it was more about the trauma that like all this violence and all of this treatment has kind of like done to him, and it's turned him into something horrible. But it's not really his fault. Like, it could have maybe said something with that, but as it is, like, no, all the supernatural shit was happening. Like, all this, like, does Candyman need his help? Does he just like helping create new Candyman? Like, I don't. This was. I don't know what it was trying to do with this character. I really don't. I don't understand this character's existence and why he needs to be this raving man who gives a monologue as he's like cutting off our main character's hand and putting a hook in him. I don't get it.
I can't really give you an answer either. It was kind of strange.
He kidnaps the girlfriend, he's got her handcuffed, and he's like monologuing about Candyman. It's all just a bit murky. There's more murky things about the ending, which we'll get to, but like his like, that was the scene in the church was, I was feeling a little like iffy on the pacing and like the structure for a little bit before that, but the scene in the church where he's giving this speech and he's doing all this stuff, this was the moment where I'm like, oh, I don't think I can like this movie anymore. I think this is just went over a line where I'm just going to, this ending just sucks too much. I can't come back from this, and it's a shame because I was really kind of digging it up until a point.
I don't think I had as harsh of a reaction. I'm not going to say that I like that part specifically or anything, but because it does kind of like feel like a little bit of a deflation for what the most part of the movie was kind of like.
I thought you were going to try and say Deus Ex Machina again there for a second, but I'm like, just stay away from it, Timmy. Stay away from it.
No, like the movie like had been mostly kind of going uphill for the most part. I feel like, and then that's when it kind of starts going downhill. But I mean, it didn't totally make me turn on the movie, and I think part of it is that again, I think Nia DaCosta really like. Just has a good eye, I guess, for like a lot of these scenes where even though I don't really like maybe his motivations or like the monologue he's doing, like I do kind of like the setting, and like him sawing off the arm is kind of gnarly, and seeing Anthony there like being all beat out, like there's like some cool visuals and stuff that was at least kind of keeping me interested, that even if I don't really like the direction of the story, I'm at least kind of digging like the vibe of it a little bit.
Sure. And I think that's the other problem, is that Anthony has no agency. There's not even like a moment where he's like conscious for like a minute to like say goodbye or understand what's happening to him. He's just a zombie at this point. Feel like,
it's not like he's like fighting it or anything. He's just kind of like just a blank slate at that point.
Yeah, and the big reveal with him, of course, as he's like investigating, as he's getting crazier, because as every time a murder happens, he seems to have like a sort of like moment in his studio where he paints or has like a freak out or something like that.
Yeah.
And well, not all of them, but certainly a number of them. And he finds out that his mother lied to him about where he was born. He thought he was born in a different part of the city. It turns out he was from this neighborhood, and it turns out that he was the baby in the original film, which was kidnapped and did get saved by the end. But we actually get the original actress back, who played the mother, whose baby was kidnapped, for her one scene with him, and she has to admit, like, she lied and all the rest of it, and I think that's the last scene we actually see of him being able to like speak and like communicate and do anything. It feels like that's just it. Like, once he's had that revelation and he knows he's this baby that's for some reason spiritually tied to Candyman because of the kidnapping.
So wait, in the I forget, in the original, what's the point of him being kidnapped? To be like born again in this vessel. Was that kind of what they were doing in the first movie? And I'm not sure if I remember.
Oh, you're asking now to me.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought there was something along those lines. Maybe maybe I could be completely wrong. But then I thought it kind of made sense then that he's kind of becoming this new Candyman figure, because that's what was going to kind of happen to him as a baby. That
oh yeah.
again,
I have no problem with this connection, and I certainly even the first trailer. It felt like they were the movie they were selling me was this guy's going to become the new Candyman, and that's going to be the plot. My problem is that he hears this, and then next time we see him, he's just a zombie letting his arm be cut off, and there's no progression there. It just jumps to it. It's really weird. Again, I feel like there's so much edited out of this. I really wonder how much of the original script didn't. Maybe it was filmed, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but it feels like it was hacked to pieces at a certain point. So that's the big thing with him as a character, really. He has freak out moments where it looks like maybe he'll be blamed. They never do it, actually. They never go down the path where the police think it's him and they investigate him. That never happens.
I was really surprised by that, because it seems like every person that gets murdered, he has some connection to, or it would be reasonable to think that there'd be some involvement. When the people at the the artist gala or whatever die, it's oh yeah, didn't people just see him having a big fight with him in public and stuff the day before?
He yelled at them. If it was earlier the same night, he yelled at them earlier the same night, and then later on, the critic who gets killed, he was in her apartment, and the girlfriend knows this. This is why the girlfriend gives him this weird I'm scared of
That's
you right
true,
now.
yeah.
When she hears about her death, it's wait, you were just there. What's going on? Because one of the things that I kind of alluded to this earlier, but when they start talking about this new apartment they're in, and it's kind of this new fancy apartment that's been built over where some of the old neighborhood was, and it talks about the gentrification and all that. I really dig when he's talking about his art. There's two scenes in particular that stuck out to me. Is when he's showing his painting that he's done sort of before the start of the movie. He's showing it to his art dealer dude, and the guy's it's okay, it's kind of like your old work. Where's the passion? Where's the fire? And he, and this dealer, who's white, is just important to note that, is he says, what are you going to do next? And Anthony's well, I was thinking maybe about looking at, the neighborhood and where I grew up. And when he mentions that he grew up in the South Side, he's South Side's been done. Give me something juicier. He's just kind of mining it as for content, basically. He's this is a sensitive thing that's. The way they're talking about the way specifically he's talking about the art dealer is very much this is just a well to be exploited for content. It's not anything he's taking seriously or treating with respect. And then likewise when he's talking to the critic later on, her attitude is very much the same kind of thing. It's this is new, and now there's been a murder, it's interesting, but before that it was trite and old hat, and we've done all this gentrification stuff before, we've done these issues before, no one cares anymore. That's kind of the attitude. So I liked it tackling that. I thought that was a nice little interesting way to put a new spin on the theme. I
totally agree, and I think they I want to say they say something they like the art we make but they don't like us, or something along those lines, which I think is a an interesting way to look at it, especially when you're dealing with stuff like racism, and it's oh yeah, you have these the people with money and positions of power, they're all these white people, but and then the people that they're making money off of are the black people and the poorer people and stuff that are there, and then it's so it's not the same as slave labor or something like that, but it is just another way to exploit people.
Yeah, and, it's institutionalized exploitation. And there's a lot of talk of the manipulation of the neighborhoods and all the rest of it. And it's worth pointing out, the original Candyman was a painter. That was his backstory.
Yeah.
So obviously there's that connection. And arguably that's kind of the point, is that if he's imprinted himself in some way onto this kid, this baby, then that's why he grew up to be a painter. Because that's it was in his spiritual DNA or something. As for the kills, I have one small critique with the first kill. It's a pair of characters. It's the art dealer and his like young girlfriend at the art gallery after dark. My one critique of this is that I do think his dialogue during this scene is a bit cheesy.
Okay.
And his delivery, because he says like
I think the guy's name is Clive.
Yeah.
Which obviously nod to Clive Barker.
Oh, for sure. So he's with the girl and they're kind of starting to like kiss, and she's like tied or like buckled her belt to his belt, and because they're like, for some reason they're getting turned on by saying Candyman 5 times into the mirror, because that's like a thing. But as they're still kissing, like he doesn't notice it at first, but you know, Candyman, and I kind of like this. This happens with the first few kills, where you only see Candyman in the reflections, but the thing still happens in the real world. So
yeah,
it's almost like a play on the Freddy Krueger rules, where he's in the dream, but it still counts in the real world. This is like in the reflection, but it still counts in the real world. So I like that play on it. And you just see like the hook like slit her throat, and you know, so that looked good. Visual, it was really stark. The build up around here as well of him like cutting like part of the screen in the reflection, but so then you see the screen kind of like cut and drop.
I really like that. I thought like this I agree, maybe a little cheesy at the end, but the whole like setup to it I thought was like very creepy and just had a nice atmosphere. Well, I like how kind of slow and methodical he is. And
yeah, I dug all that. It was just the dialogue the guy had, because he actually he said, "Is this real? Is this real?" And then as he's trying to run away from Candyman, he actually quotes Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park and Independence Day. He says, "Must go faster, must go faster."
Oh yeah.
And I'm like,
I forgot about that.
Why do you have this line of dialogue? It just feels
weird.
It felt unnatural, but that was the only thing I didn't like about this scene. The actual kills and the actual suspense and the build up and even the mechanics of the kills, I liked.
I definitely agree. Yeah, that's for me. That's probably like maybe one of the strongest parts of the movie. I really like that.
Yeah,
and
the critic
I think especially
as well. I think had a good death.
Yeah, I like that too. I think like in general, they do like a lot of interesting stuff with mirrors, which is kind of funny because like it's such a big part of the Candyman mythos, but like I feel like in the first movie, like there isn't really much to it. It's just that you have to say his name into a mirror. I like that this one actually like did more stuff with mirrors, and then it kind of felt like a recurring thing like throughout the movie. I thought it was a cool little touch.
Yeah. The critic's death's got a really cool visual. I always like when a kill plays out silently, and it does this thing where she comes out of her bathroom. She had an interview with Anthony, but he leaves, and just after he leaves, we cut to an exterior shot of her apartment, which is in a high-rise, set of apartments, and the camera just pulls back, and we see her. I'd say the first part is a little fake looking, where she gets like picked up by an invisible force and then gets thrown against the window. But the part of it that I really liked is that she slowly gets dragged across the big the big window of her apartment or her apartment, and you just see the streak of blood going across the window as her body's like being dragged across it. But all this plays out in silence as the camera's just pulling back of a shot of the building, so it's like quite small in the frame, and it just looks really good and creepy in that context.
And I just really love the idea, and like as it's like zooming out and stuff, you see like other like other buildings and stuff, and like lights turning on and off in like other rooms. I just like this idea of like, oh, this horrific thing is going on, but it's so small compared to like everything else that's going on in the city right now. Like no one really notices that this is happening. Yeah, no
one notices, no one cares. Maybe that's a harsh thing to say, but like in the moment, no one cares. No one's like paying attention or witnessing it. So yeah, I thought that like some of the directorial choices like that I think are exceptional, and I've had DaCosta's previous film Little Woods on my to-do list for. It's not a horror movie, but it's Tessa Thompson and someone else. I can't remember who the other actress was, but it's two actresses, and it's like a sort of, I don't know if it's a revenge movie or it's just a thriller, but it got some good buzz, and I've had it on my to-do list for a while. I'd be very interested to see how that is, especially since she wrote and directed it, and I'm wondering like, is the problems with this that the script wasn't that good, or is the problems because it was chopped up so much, or it was edited, or I'd be curious. And even if the script for this isn't that good, like is it her fault because there was 3 writers on it? So
what I'm kind of curious about, everything has been delayed for so long because of the pandemic and everything, and I wonder if that is making like a lot of movies, get like a little bit more like edited to death, because like if stuff has to come out right away, you're just gonna put it out. Like you might not be able to change stuff, but if you're sitting on something for a year, like is it just sitting there as is, or do people have more time to be like, you know what, maybe we should take this in or out, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the time, like, I mean, editing things out of a movie is not hard to do. So I don't think I don't think that's time sensitive. But I think the part there that you may be right on is just the idea that if you've got a year to think about it, you might start changing your mind, or the studio might even be the ones who go, "Oh, I mean, this is nearly 2 hours long. Maybe we should cut out like 25 minutes." Because that's what it feels like. It genuinely feels like an entire like act of the movie is missing before the final 20 minutes.
Or if like you have more time to do like those dumb what do you call it, like audience surveys or whatever, like audience screenings, and then people are like, oh, I didn't like that there are no dogs, and then like, oh, we gotta shoot some like dogs now, like or whatever. I don't know if they did that for this movie, but
I've never heard that specific thing being added in because of the audience demanding more dogs. But
well, you know how like I don't know, most audiences are stupid, and then but people get like nervous and are like, oh no, we got to do whatever we do.
More often than not, what you actually hear is either that something didn't get explained and they wanted it explained, so they'll add in a new ending where it explains something, or it'll be, why the hell did this character die? Everyone hates that this character died, so they'll maybe reshoot a new thing where the character survived, or vice versa. They hate the character, so they want the character to die, so they'll go back and kill them.
I think I told you about this before, or I'm sure we talked about it on the episode, but I did go to one of those when I saw like a special preview screening of Rings. And I did fill out like a little questionnaire at the end, and oh boy, did I I let them have it.
Oh, I bet you did.
I mean, maybe I should have mentioned that I was on a very prominent horror podcast. Maybe they would have felt more inclined to listen to my suggestions, but they obviously just released it as is.
They might have turned you away at the door thinking you'd reveal secrets before it was released. Yeah, I love that they delayed that by like 4 months, I think, or something like that, and then it came out and it was still just complete trash.
Yeah, I was mad because I had to watch it again. I was like, God damn it!
You could have turned down the preview screening.
I was intrigued.
I get the intrigue, I do, but let's be honest, we both knew that movie was going to stink.
Oh sure.
Like there was almost no chance that was going to be some sort of surprise gem that you'd have been excited about watching a second time. Highly unlikely. So those are the two standout kills, though. The art dealer stuff and the critic. Some of the other ones are fun and conception, but they tend to hide a lot of the other ones, like like the girls in the bathroom at the school who say Candyman 5 times, like that's like sort of like there's chaos happening, but we stay with the one character who didn't say the name in the stall, in the cubicles. So and
except for like again, another good like mirror motif when like the girl's pocket mirror lands on the ground and you can kind of see some stuff in the reflection. I think that was like a good scene, but it just kind of felt like out of nowhere. Like
it felt like we
know
wanted
nothing about these characters.
It felt like we wanted a scene for the trailer, and honestly, like the only thing they had is that one of the girls was at the art gallery because they made a point of like showing her. Like they said, who's this blonde girl at the art gallery show? And then she doesn't come up for like an hour, and then it's just this one scene in the high school where they all say the name and get killed, and it's like, oh, all right, okay, whatever.
Like it seems like it would have made more sense if show her at the gallery or whatever, but then show her scene like whatever 10-15 minutes later in the movie instead of it just kind of seems to come out of nowhere at the end.
The other thing with Brianna's character, the girlfriend, is that she like it makes a point of telling us that her father committed suicide when he was young, and he was also an artist, and that's kind of like she's kind of resentful to him for the suicide, but like she did kind of get into the industry that he was in. I felt like it didn't really do too much with that or like explore her character enough.
No.
I'm glad you agree. That was a very matter of the fact agreement.
Like I do like the little flashback scene with her, like when he's kind of like saying these like kind of weird like upsetting things. So like there was kind of a nice creepiness to it, like not like Candyman creepy, but just like creepy and like, oh, something's not right here and he's gonna do something not good. So it is. I did like that scene, but again, it's like, yeah, I'm not exactly sure what purpose it served, or or maybe it should have been fleshed out more or something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that the idea is that this is a character who's been affected by, like the stress that he's under, the pressure that he's under. A lot of it probably comes from other themes that the movie's getting at, but we never learn enough about him to really know that, or like get any kind of indication of that. So we just kind of have to roll with it. And Brianna's, a perfectly likable character. She just doesn't really get enough development. I think the one main thing she has is that there's also kind of an exploitation of like her in a way where she seems to be getting like bigger offers to go to like an art gallery in New York, but it kind of seems like it's tied to the fact that, oh, like your boyfriend's art like exhibit was great, but it's only great because a murder happened there, so now it's got this super relevant meaning, because the critic before the murder happens, oh, this is super trite and old hat and not that impressive and blah blah blah. But when the murder happens, like, oh, all of a sudden, like, you have this thing, and I guess that's the other thing with the high school murders feel really tacked on, is that all of the other murders up until that point felt like he could be a suspect because he's, he knows the characters, because he has maybe like at least a part of a motive, if not more of a motive to kill them. But like out of nowhere, these 5 high school girls all get murdered in the toilet. like really, I mean, I say bathroom, just to make that clear. They're not literally in the toilet seat, but yeah.
They should have like given him diarrhea, and he was like, "Oh man, I got to run into the school and take a crap," and that's when the girls get killed.
I think maybe the feeling I got from it is about the halfway point. Once he's like investigating and he's listening to the tape of Helen, right, from the original movie. I think around there it's where it started to feel like it was starting to do random, like, I mean, stuff that looked good, but sort of random creepy moments, like, all the stuff with him in the elevator and like the blood like dripping down and all that felt like okay, this is kind of neat. But that was where I started to maybe feel like there was less of a method to the madness, and it was more just like random creepy supernatural scenes now can just happen. So that's maybe where I started to fall out of it a little bit, but really it's the last 20 minutes where it just kind of, and there's always some stuff to talk about in the ending. But is there anything else before we get to the ending that you think we should go back and discuss? Like there's some supporting characters, but they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them,
Yeah, I almost wish that there was more to the characters. It's kind of funny because it's like the opposite of Halloween Kills, where like a lot of the characters in that felt like these weird, like, sketch characters that kind of had no purpose or anything. But I actually like the characters in this. Like, I liked her brother and his boyfriend, and like that one kind of like dicky artist that seemed like maybe it might be kind of like a rival or something. Like, if anything, I felt like maybe he could have done something more with those characters.
Underutilized, perhaps. Yeah.
Like I thought that that one painter dude that he seemed angry at, that was at least gonna die or something. But yeah, I mean, no, I thought those were all good. I kind of joked about it before, but it really did bother me, like, how gross his hand was getting, and like how long it took him to go to the hospital. Because like after, and also like, Brianna should have been like, hey, Jesus, like, we're taking you to the hospital now, like, because he gets one bee sting, but like his whole hand like starts turning into like this gross, like, decaying, like, I don't know, like it looks like it's made out of beehives, which is a cool visual. But also, man, go get your hand checked out.
It also started to look burned to me, because we know Candyman was burned, so I was wondering if it was trying to evoke that imagery, especially as it was like the entire, by the time you get to the end of the movie, like his face and like half of his body's all like that.
I love Candyman, but man, he might be one of the most like what's the word, like he has so much going on. It's like, all right, yeah, you got the mirror thing, okay, got it. Oh, also you got a hook for a hand, okay. Oh, also you have a thing with bees. Oh, also you're on fire, okay. It's like, geez, like, Freddy just has a glove. Like, Jason just has like a hockey mask,
More complex, and I think that's maybe why it's harder to like do a good Candyman movie, because it has to actually hit all the notes that it's supposed to hit. Sure. And whereas the original film, I think, is very rewarding, because as you sort of like go through it and you understand all what everything represents, I think here you're getting some good sense of that early on, but it really muddies up by the end. And I suppose it's time to finally talk about that, which is so he's turning, William Burke is turning Anthony into new Candyman. He's crazy, he's raving. He cuts off his hand and puts a hook on Anthony, and Anthony's standing there in the coat, and it's all just, and all throughout this I'm thinking, but is the actual like spirit of Candyman going to show up? Like, because we've had a Candyman killing people throughout the movie, and it kind of feels like that's just almost like glossed over, because now he's going to take over, so it doesn't really matter. He just needs the tragedy, because this is the thing that William Burke sets up. He makes sure the police know to come here, because he wants to sort of have his life, not his own life, but Anthony's life, to end in tragedy, to make him a new Candyman. The idea that he set up the idea that this, he's described him, he's described the hook for the hand.
Yeah, it's kind of like the end of, spoiler alert, but the ending of Spiral from the Book of Saw.
It's like Spiral from the Book of Saw and Halloween 2018. These are not good comparisons to be making. And it's like, okay, so Brianna is able to get free, and she runs away a little bit, but William Burke comes after, and there's the implication.
What's the name of the guy from Resident Evil? William Birkin?
Birkin, yeah.
I just keep thinking of that.
I get it. It's close. Close. Some very similar name. So that all plays out, and effectively, like, the police do shoot William Burke, and they seem to also shoot. Either they kill Anthony, or Anthony's already just like ascended into supernatural territory and doesn't need to be killed. But like, they never show. I like this again. The strong directorial touch. They never show the police faces all that well. So when she's put in the police car and the guy sits in the front, and we only ever see his eyes, it makes him really inhumane, right? And he's basically like, hey, like that guy, he was coming at you with the hook, so we had to shoot him, right? Like that's what happened. He's basically trying to give her the story she's supposed to tell in her eyewitness account, so that the police officer who shot him won't get into trouble. And then threatens her, and so we're dealing with the themes here that like we're hitting with. If anything, this felt like the one modern thing that should have been like more inserted into the movie, because the idea of police brutality has become a lot more public, I think, and like in media in the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever it's been, and it feels like a really sensible thing to add more into Candyman and make it more part of its mythos. What gets me though is that she decides to look into the mirror. She actually asks him, hey, can I see my reflection, and I'll say whatever you want, and she says Candyman 5 times basically. And I was reading this moment like, this is a really sad, tragic ending, but she's essentially choosing to evoke Candyman to take out these cops, but probably herself too. The problem I had with this is that it kind of felt like all of a sudden Candyman turned into some sort of spirit of vengeance who could be called upon, and like
Ghost Rider.
Like, why isn't he also killing her? Is it just because technically it's still her boyfriend who's Candyman now, or like because
that's the perks of dating a Candyman?
I guess because Candyman, he never held back from killing anyone. Right, he would kill whoever summoned him. Really, right? He would become involved in whoever summoned him.
Well, I guess because Anthony summoned him, right?
Yeah, but then she summons him here at the end.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I guess technically he didn't kill Anthony, but I don't know if that's because they kind of have that bond or whatever.
Yeah, because it's like he has spiritual son. So
now I wasn't sure if this was like deliberate or if there's something behind this, but I think it's only like, I mean, I guess aside from Brianna at the end, but isn't it mostly white people that say his name into the mirror and that get killed in the movie? I don't know if that has anything to do with it, or
I guess that's true. I guess it's true that it is pretty much all white people who get killed by him in this movie. So
I mean, I don't know if that's like a very like deliberate choice. No,
actually, this is, well, at least this version of Candyman, but there is a flashback.
You're right. Yes.
So William Burke, we get a flashback where his big sister got killed by doing Candyman in the bathroom.
That's true.
And her friends were black. So at least that's at least one example.
Okay.
In the movie, but It just,
no, I mean, I thought the same thing with this ending though, because I was like, yeah, I wasn't sure, like, oh, is he, yeah, like more of this kind of, yeah, like a avenging angel kind of thing instead of like a, yeah, I'll just come up and kill whoever summons me.
yeah, is there no danger to her now?
Yeah.
It just like, because I thought there was maybe some power in her summoning Candyman, knowing what it probably meant for her, and like that's just where she's been pushed to. It could be a really sort of tragic ending. The idea that like the horror that some people are put through can drive them to horrible things. Maybe this is how you somehow tie it back to her father. Like her father got to such a breaking point that he just, he had to commit suicide. That's just how he felt. And it's not a one-to-one comparison, but maybe like, in her final moment, she kind of like understands him, or at least empathizes with her father a bit better. And that could be like a character arc for her. Like there could be something there to that. But it doesn't really feel like it hits or is there all that much. And the end of the movie, she gets out of the car, and the final moment of the film is that she sees Tony Todd Candyman, like it's formed out of bees, and but he looks younger. They're using some CG to make him look young, which is a little distracting.
Thank God I couldn't have. Yeah, if they showed an old Candyman, I don't know what I would have done.
Well, I don't think it really wouldn't have mattered. Like I would not have thought twice if it was just current age Tony Todd.
But like I think like, and also like if you've seen Tony Todd in interviews, like I don't think it's not like he looks like super old. Like it's not like he's like some like 90-year-old Yoda looking dude. So,
yeah, no, he doesn't. He's aged very well. As has actually. I thought Vanessa Williams, who plays the mum of the baby, the mum of the main character. I when she opened the door and I saw her, I was like, wait, this is meant to be his mum? She doesn't look old enough, but she is her. That's her from the first movie. It's the same actress. That wasn't my point, but sure. So, I could have done without the CG to make him look younger, but whatever. But he basically says, tell everyone, right? That's not even up with the exact line, but that's the sentiment, is like, spread the word of Candyman. Let the legend grow, because people, and this sentiment I think is a big part of the movie, and I think it kind of swings back around to what it felt like it was about in the first act, which is no, these things should not be forgotten. It should not be treated like it's something that's been dealt with. Like this always has to be remembered. We have to remember these things, and Candyman is almost like a boogeyman to like make sure everyone remembers.
Totally, yeah.
So coming back around to that's fine. And if you are familiar with the original film, if you're a fan of the original film, obviously it's a big deal seeing Tony Todd at the end. But like it doesn't rescue the ending, because the ending's been so murky.
Did you do the like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where like you point at the TV?
Not so much at that moment, but maybe because one of the things we didn't mention is with some of the, not the flashbacks with William Burke, those are all real scenes, but whenever they talk about the original movie, or they talk about the Legend of Candyman, they do like a puppet show. There's like a sort of like sort of effect as they're talking over it. I think when they first started, when the brother started talking about Helen when he's telling the story, and I realized, oh, this is the first movie. That's when the Leonardo DiCaprio meme came out.
Hell yeah.
With the pointing. So I did have that moment, but it wasn't at the ending. I was kind of waiting for it. I was like, there's no way they didn't give Tony Todd some sort of cameo. There's no way.
Yeah.
Like
I think I knew it going in. I think I'd heard that he's in it in some way, so I was expecting it.
Yeah.
They should have given Nicolas Cage a cameo too.
Why?
Just because like all the bees and stuff.
I mean, I can't argue with that, I suppose.
Candyman versus Wicker Man.
Yeah, I think that's probably the weird sad thing about this is better than Halloween 2018, and it's obviously much better than Spiral Book of Saw. Right? I don't think those are shocking things to say. There's definitely good direction in here. There's likable characters. There's there's great ideas and themes that it's playing with, and messages that it wants to put in there. But it does kind of feel like, even though it does feel more akin to like a smaller film that's got an idea behind it, it does still kind of have a little bit of that we wanted to bring a franchise back stink. Because
sure.
it wants to tie into the original film, and to be fair, I think the way it ties into the original film is actually pretty well handled. That's not actually the problem with the movie, but it does have a little bit of like that Force Awakens. We're resetting this, and so if it's successful, we can have Candyman 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, however many they want to make, and like there's a little bit of a cynical touch to it as well. But I really, the scene in the church, man, is so bad. Like William Burke turning out to be the psychopath who wants to help make the next Candyman just did not work for me at all. Like, I feel like you have to spend more time with that character and get more out of him to like justify that turn. And then the murkiness of like, is Candyman like a good spirit now because he can be called upon to like, you know, kill like corrupt cops and whatnot. Like, it's just a bit weird.
Yeah, and is it like when you say his name, is it always like the latest Candyman that shows up, or like, I don't know, do they kind of pick and choose? Like, all right, you go this time, and like, oh, I'll go now, and I don't know.
I guess it's always the latest one, just because it's the newest. The movie didn't really get that across, I don't think, super well. Because obviously the only time we see an older Candyman is at the very end when it's Tony Todd who, you know, but he's meant to be the original. So which would imply
and they're all like part of his hive or something, he says.
Which would imply that the 5 or 6 or whatever how many it's been have all happened in like the past 30 years. They've all been over the last, which isn't actually really true, because the one in this movie that we learned about was from the 60s or whatever, which is before the original film. So
yeah, it kind of reminds me of that thing they do sometimes in comic books that I really don't like, where they have like a superhero and like they decide to make him part of like a lineage or something, like it's like Green Arrow isn't just a guy that shoots a bow and arrow, now he's from this like ancient Arrow clan or some crap like that.
I think it works to an extent with Candyman because of what he represents.
Oh no, I think it works more in this, but I just wanted to gripe about comic books for a minute.
Sure. But because Candyman, represents like, an entire group of people, and or more specifically the pain and the horrors that those people have went through, and the idea that keeps happening, so there's always a new Candyman. It's kind of a nice idea. Like I really like what the movie's going for with that. Everything gets so murky in that last act. It just kind of falls apart. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think this is kind of what I struggled with, where you have stuff like this that does feel just like it doesn't feel like it's totally whiffed it for me. It just feels like it's like it just needed that little extra bit of work to maybe bring it all together, instead of just having it feel like a little too convoluted, a little too messy than what it's needed. But I think it is like a big compliment, though, that I think it's still handled a lot better than most other movies. Like, I'm sure in many other people's hands, like, this would have been something just awful that could rag about for 2 hours. But instead, it's like, I still have a lot of compliments to say, even if it doesn't totally achieve like everything I feel like it's maybe necessarily setting out to do, or what I kind of hoped it or wanted it to do. So positives there.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get some big director's cut at some point, which will help a lot of the problems, because it feels like a movie that could actually be saved by a long director's cut if there is such a thing that exists, and I don't know if there is. So
Zack Snyder, where are you?
don't invoke the name of Snyder. Snyder. He doesn't kill people, he just shows up and kills your favorite movie characters.
Yeah.
That's what he does. So like, it made me interested in Nia DaCosta as a director. I think that some of the scenes are really well directed, and her handle of characters early on is pretty strong. So like, admittedly, she's doing a Marvel movie next, so I mean, I'm not super excited about that, because I'm sick of Marvel movies at this point, but Shang-Chi sucked. Right? Shang-Chi just simply sucked. I'm leaving it there.
Okay. I'll disagree, but that's a podcast for another time.
I haven't seen Eternals yet. I'll see it when it hits the home market. I go to the theater for Eternals. Kidding me?
Okay.
These like what? Like O-listers. These O-listers. Like they're like halfway down the alphabet. They're terrible.
I mean, I hate to admit it, but yeah, I don't. I've tried very hard to like Eternals comics, and I just. I mean, Jack Kirby, Neil Gaiman, and Kieran Gillen, none of them have made me like a Eternals comic, and they're all just
that's a list
fantastic
of names.
writers.
Yeah, that's a hell of a list of names. Neither Costa's doing the Marvels movie. The one with Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and...
Oh, okay, gotcha. I don't so I don't really know really much about her, so I don't know if she's like a big horror fan, but I really would like to see her do like another horror movie, because again, like I just think the kills in this were really just I love the way they were handled, and there's like a lot of interesting stuff, and I feel like stuff that like haven't really seen, or at least isn't something that you see very often, like like there's like I feel like a lot of thought put into ways of making like each kill kind of interesting and standing out. So yeah, I don't know if she's a big horror head, but I would definitely love to see her maybe try another one in the future. Maybe when we get the fabled Boy 3, she'll put her hat in the ring.
That's not... I mean, that'd be a shame for a career to waste talent on the Boy 3 of all things. Yeah, so I guess it's time to rate the movie. I'm pretty... Sadly, I'm disappointed, and it's one of those weird things where I'm not just disappointed because I was wanting to like the movie before I watched it. I'm disappointed because I was actually kind of liking a lot about the movie, and then saying it went off a cliff feels harsh, but honestly, yeah. I don't know if there's a better way of putting it, because it kind of does go off a cliff at a certain point. So, Timmy, what are you rating Candyman?
I think I'm going to give it a... I'm kind of waffling between two scores. I think I was debating between like a 7 and a 6.5, but I think I'm going to go 6.5, again, just because there was a lot I liked about it, and I can't give it like a super low score because, there was so much stuff that I thought like stood out and that I really liked. And again, I think it is like really a shame that a lot of like the story stuff is kind of where I feel like the faults in it lie, but I don't know, maybe I'm being too forgiving, but I feel like it's easier to overlook when I am like really liking like the visual storytelling that's happening in a lot of these sequences. So I think I'll be a little generous. I'll bump it up to a 7. Because I do think I do like this movie, but it's just there are those short problems with it that I feel like this easily could have been like an 8 or an 8.5 if some of that stuff was just ironed out and maybe a little more clear or focused, or again, very surprising to say, but like, yeah, if it feels like a little longer and fleshed out, which usually is the opposite for the movie. You're just like, oh my god, why is this movie so long? Just make it end. But yeah, there was a lot that I liked about it, but unfortunately, it doesn't nail everything.
Yeah, I think I'm a little conflicted myself about what to rate this, because there are things in it I really like. I like the first like half hour to 40 minutes is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then it kind of starts to dwindle a little bit, but really is hurt by the last 20 minutes. So I still kind of want to be nice and give it a 6, but also part of me feels like the ending is so murky that I don't know. Because a 6 is something that at least I, in theory, would not... like, I should be kind of wanting to watch again at some point. And I don't know if I would, at least in its current form. A director's cut would be interesting. Like, if they came out with a director's cut and said, hey, this adds, like, 15, 20 minutes back into it, I'd be curious, especially if they say it's all in the back half of the movie. Because I'd be like, okay, that's where it needs it. I
Just
think...
go with your heart.
I think I'll be a little harsher and say 5.5.
Wow.
I think I have to
breaking
go 5.5.
some of our fans' hearts.
Oh, I'm sure they're heartbroken. So that's Candyman. It wasn't quite the sweet treat that I was hoping it would be. It started out sweet, but then I had a really sour center, and I'm not into the sour. I'm not into the sour candy. I'm sorry, it's not my thing.
Oh, I did treat myself to 2 pieces of Halloween candy as I was watching this, which and now that I'm pre-diabetic, so I can't eat a lot of sugar stuff, which really sucks because we have so much Halloween candy left over. So I don't get to indulge very often, but Candyman, I let myself have a little sweetness while I watched it.
Oh dear. No, Candyman just like a taunt for Timmy. No, he's like, you can't have that much candy.
Do you want to know something creepy?
Sure, why not? Why not finish off the episode with a creepy anecdote?
Because I was talking about this online, but I did a sleep study the other night. So basically, you go to this medical building after hours, so it's kind of creepy. You park in this big parking lot where no one else is there, and then you walk through like this dark building where like someone you can't see or hear just keeps buzzing you up. And
have you double checked to make sure that both kidneys are still there? Because
that's a good point. I would have to check on that, but so basically you go they give you like your own little room that you sleep in, and then but there's a person there who attaches like all these wires and electrodes and stuff to monitor you, and the guy that was doing it for me, he was very nice, but he was like very like soft spoken, and he just kept talking about how they're gonna watch me while I sleep. So like he kept being like, I'm gonna put a lot of wires on you, don't worry, this is all normal, don't, it's just a typical procedure, but hey, once it's over you're gonna feel better, all you gotta do is go to sleep for us. Just go to sleep, we'll watch everything, we'll make sure you're doing fine, you're breathing normal, if anything's wrong we'll go ahead and fix it, all you gotta do is just go to sleep for us. It's like he just kept like really hammering that sleep for us part. That was like, all right man, it's getting a little creepy.
Sometimes if I have to fall asleep, it's the worst. Like I have so much trouble falling asleep. Like I want to sleep whenever I can't sleep, and when I do have time to sleep, that's when my body just doesn't want. So someone saying you have to fall asleep because this is the whole point of the study, it would just be like, oh, okay, that's not happening then. Like put on Lord of the Rings or something to knock me out, because like it ain't happening naturally.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a performance anxiety with it for sure.
Which is silly because it's sleep.
Yeah.
It's like someone saying we like urine sample, and I'm going to stare at you like pee now, pee, pee now, pee.
All you gotta do is pee for us. Just give us a little pee, and we'll make sure you're okay. It's like, Jesus, can you just phrase it another way?
Oh dear. But okay, there you go. What an anecdote to wrap up. Did you get results? So are you?
Not yet. So they were checking to see if I have sleep apnea. Which they said if I was showing signs of it, that they would like wake me up and put a what they call a CPAP mask on, which they did not wake me up. So I'm assuming that means maybe I don't have it, or maybe if I do, it's like mild or something. But I should get like the results like in a week or so from my doctor's office. Okay. But
so you don't have to explain it or anything. But I assume, was there a reason why you felt the need to get this checked?
I was at I hadn't been to like a doctor for a while, and then I went there, like I hadn't been there like probably over 10 years, and I was going there to like get a physical just to, because I'm getting older and I have a family and stuff now, so
we've noticed him.
So yeah, when you go to a doctor's office, like if you mention anything, they immediately like schedule like 18 tests for it. So like,
well, that's because they make more money off of you.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, because basically the doctor was like, "So how are you sleeping?" And I said, like, I think I said something like, "I'm mostly good. Like, maybe every now and again I get like a little tired or restless." And he was immediately like, "Oh, well, maybe you have sleep apnea. We gotta check that out." But I do have like some. It's better now, but for a while I did have some bad snoring, which is also like a thing that can be caused by it. So that's possible, but lately I haven't had it too bad, so I don't know.
Sounds like you were con, to be honest, Timmy.
Sure, it probably is. But
That's the thing. That's the thing about your healthcare system, is that it just like doctors like feel like they're 2 steps away from a used car sales, but they're just convincing you to get all the extras. Like
that's
you get the leather seats, you need to get the warmers, you need to get the cup holder.
Yeah, that's why, like, whenever they ask you stuff, like, I don't want to say anything because they're like, oh, like, you know, how's your throat feel? If you're like, you know, it's a little dry, they're immediately going to be like, oh, well, we're going to have to test you for, you know, dry mouth syndrome, and you're going to have to go to this other lab across the city where they're going to stick a thing down your throat, and, like, yeah, and then you're going to wait to get lab results back, and then you're going to have to come back into the office. It's like, yeah, it's better just not say anything.
All right. Well, that's a little tangent at the end. So yes, that's what Screams After Midnight. Tim has to pose for the thumbnail, so I'm going to make him do that now. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. That may be one of the best ones you've done, Timmy. I'm not going to lie. So that is cool. As far as episodes coming up, obviously we're on a slightly later schedule still. We're not back to the full weekly swing quite yet, but we are planning a couple of Christmas episodes for December, and one other big newish release as well. So in theory, you should have 3 more episodes before the end of the year. That's the plan.
The Screams theory.
So look forward to all of those things. You can, of course, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Ding the bell for notifications, and you know, get all that stuff on YouTube. All of those things help a lot on YouTube. They help YouTube channels grow, which is why every YouTuber tells you to do those things. So please hit the buttons. You can also give us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. That helps out on those platforms. And of course, you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. You go over and do that. Well, the higher tiers, you get a producer credit, and I will take this time now to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Tradesman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. So there you go. That is the list.
Yeah, there should be a Patreon tier where you'll record someone's answering machine outgoing message.
That'd be an easy thing to do. So there's no harm in it, I suppose. But maybe a bit of a nonsense message though, if you just have me and Tim like rambling for like 5 minutes. Oh, by the way, leave a call after the beep.
Scream for me.
The person you have called is straight up garbage.
That would be funny.
Believe it or not, Georgia's in at home. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion on Candyman, and we will see you soon for another brand new episode of Screams After Midnight. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and just, you know, try not to say his name 5 times in the mirror. And I am, of course, referring to Bye Bye Man. Bye Bye Man. Bye Bye Man. Bye Bye Man. Bye Bye Man.